just the physical space has been helpful in the sense that it defamiliarizes students. It's a very different type of classroom space when you first come in. And so having students be able to kind of group up into different configurations or use different kinds of seating and just be at those different levels, I think defamiliarizes this as a classroom that is going to ask them to do different things, starting with the way that they sit differently. One of the things that the space affords is really breaking things down piece by piece and moving them around and seeing how things fit together, in new or different ways. For example, using the whiteboards is really helpful. Being able to annotate a text on two different boards and then have people move across the room and look, to think about how things are different, gets them thinking about moving things. Using this blackboard over here that has 4 different segments or can be broken down into different sections, and then using the little magnets with index cards or posters to actually move things around, I think is helping students to defamiliarize themselves from the linearity of writing, that when you create a piece of writing, it's not like locked in there forever. You can move it around and you can take chunks of it and move them into new places.
The most challenging part about teaching in the active learning classroom for me is probably what it is for most people is you don't know where to go. There's not like a clear space to be a teacher in the room. So I often find myself perched behind the tall desk or like by the whiteboard or by the smart board. But any one of those spaces still have student backs to you, so it doesn't feel like you can just camp there for the whole day. So I'm still getting used to that, and it still makes me uncomfortable having to move around all the time and not having like one space where I can be. But I think that that's a good struggle to be going through. It kind of helps me or forces me to reconceptualize like what I'm doing physically. I can be there, or I can actively not be there over their shoulders if that's what they need.
Something which maybe I really enjoy, but we've used a lot in class so far, and which I think is really interesting, which is these boards, the small boards that you can kind of pick up and move about the classroom space. And I think that those are really interesting because they allow students to use them as a workspace for themselves, but also it's a teaching tool. They're used to the teacher writing on the board. So when they get to hold up the board and share it, it suddenly validates their thoughts and learning as though they're the teacher, which I think is been effective.
So I do a lot of like mind mapping on the whiteboard, and I like to, that's my way of getting student voice into my side of the lesson, I guess. But having it like a whiteboard that you can break down and give to individual groups allows them to put their own voice directly onto the wall after it's done, so that I give a lot of group time to write things or discussion questions on the mini whiteboards, and then we put them back up on the wall, and there's like a class mind map that isn't just me writing it through what my students are saying, but them physically writing it themselves.
I'm thinking more about the different ways that students learn, so visual learners, tactile learners, even auditory learners, thinking about if we're kind of throwing information around the space. So it's been really cool to kind of challenge the way that I put a lesson plan together. So I'm learning how to teach more physically.